remember the cold bathroom tiles pressing against my knees. My fingers were shaking as I held the pregnancy test. 2 pink lines. Clear as day. I stared at them for a long time, but my brain refused to accept what my eyes could see. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I pressed my back to the wall. The quiet hum of the ceiling light buzzed like a scream in my ears. The world spun around me. My breath came in short, sharp gasps, like I'd been punched in the stomach. I felt like I was falling, not from a building, but from inside my own body. I was 18 and pregnant, and I knew who the father was. My own brother, Michael. Hey family, before we dive into today's story, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and comment below where you're watching from. And, please, watch the story till the very end. Now let's continue the story. I wanted to rip my skin off, scrub everything until I disappeared. But nothing could erase what had happened. Nothing could change it. I told myself I had to speak up. So I walked into the living room that evening, heart pounding so hard it hurt. My father sat in his chair, flipping through the newspaper like always. The air smelled like burnt coffee and old silence. "I need to tell you something," I said, voice barely a whisper. He didn't look up. "What now?" "I'm pregnant." He paused, then slowly turned his head, eyes cold. "From who?" I hesitated, then said, "Michael." I didn't even see the slap coming. My face stung. My lip bled. And worse than the pain was the look. In his eyes, I was dirt. "Liar," he spat. "You disgust me." That night I ran. I packed a bag, opened the door, and didn't look back. For the first time, I chose to survive. My name is Sarah. I was born in Los Angeles, the second child in a small, worn-down house on the edge of South Central. We never had much, but my mother made it feel like we had enough, until she died. I was 8. After she passed, the color drained from our home. The curtains stayed closed. The air was always thick and silent. No laughter, no warmth. Just the sound of my father's footsteps and the ticking clock over the kitchen table. He was a hard man. Deep-set eyes, always frowning. The type of man who believed God gave him full control, especially over women. Girls must be quiet, he'd say, obedient, useful. To him, daughters were burdens. He made that clear. I remember once, when I spilled milk on the carpet, I was about 9. He looked at me and said, "Your mother spoiled you. That's why you're useless now." I stood frozen, staring at the puddle, ashamed of my existence. Michael was different, at least at first. He was 4 years older than me. When we were kids, he used to sneak me candy and cover for me when I got in trouble. He'd ruffle my hair and call me Little Chipmunk. I looked up to him. I trusted him, but something changed when he turned 16. He started staying in his room more. He got louder, more angry. He'd slam doors, snap at me. But sometimes, he was kind again, just enough to keep me confused. By the time I was 13, the kindness was just a trap. It started small. A weird touch here, a comment there. He'd act like it was normal, like I was the one who didn't understand. "Relax," he'd say. "We're family." I didn't know how to fight it. I didn't have the words. One time, in 8th grade, I tried to tell my English teacher. I stayed after class, heart pounding in my throat. I said, "Something's happening at home. I don't feel safe." She asked what I meant. I couldn't say it. I was too scared. But she called home anyway. And that night, my father dragged me into the hallway. "You want to ruin this family?" he yelled. He didn't hit me that time, but the look in his eyes, it made me wish I was invisible. From that day on, I knew. Silence was survival. Michael became the golden boy. Straight, A's church leader, everyone's favorite. People adored him. My father beamed with pride whenever someone mentioned his name. But no one saw what he was like when the doors were closed. I was homeschooled after 8th grade, supposedly for safety, but really so I couldn't talk to anyone. My world became the 4 walls of that house. The long, quiet days, the creaking floors, the feeling that I was always being watched. I started writing stories in secret. That was my escape. Little notebooks I kept hidden in an old shoebox under my bed. In those stories, I was brave, free. I had wings. I could fly. But even those got taken from me. One day, Michael found the box. He read my stories out loud, mocking my words. "You think you're some kind of writer?" He laughed. "No one cares about your sad little fantasies." He tore the pages one by one. I didn't cry. I just stood there, silent, numb. That became my normal. By 17, I didn't feel like a person anymore. My body wasn't mine. My thoughts weren't safe. I walked through each day like a shadow of myself. And then, at 18, everything changed. I missed a period, then 2. I tried to tell myself it was stress, but deep down, I knew. The fear grew in my chest like a storm. I bought a test from the corner store with money I had saved from doing odd chores for our neighbor. I took it in the bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the cold tiles. 2 pink lines. Positive. I stared at it for a long time. My hands shook. My breath came in short gasps. My world cracked in half. That night, I stood in front of my father with the truth on my lips. And instead of safety, I found his fist. That slap wasn't just pain. It was the end of the girl I used to be. Because after that, I ran. I didn't even pack everything. Just a small backpack, some clothes. My writing notebook, a new one I had kept hidden behind the toilet tank. I walked out the front door at midnight. The moon was high. The air was sharp and cold. I didn't look back. I didn't know where I was going. But I knew I had to leave. For the baby. For myself. For the girl inside me who still wanted to live. At first, I thought maybe I could hide it forever. I wore big sweatshirts, even in the heat. I pulled the hood tight and walked with my head down. My father barely looked at me anyway. And Michael, he had his own routines. He was always busy with church, with friends, with pretending to be perfect. But I knew. My body knew. I could feel it. Quiet changes, whispers under my skin. My chest ached. My stomach turned in the mornings. I would lie in bed with my hand over my belly, breathing through the nausea, trying not to cry. I didn't have anyone. Not one soul I could trust. The loneliness wrapped around me like a wet blanket. Heavy, cold, suffocating. I tried to pretend things were normal. I cooked, I cleaned, I obeyed. I kept my voice soft. I nodded when spoken to. I stared at the floor when Michael was near, but inside, I was breaking apart. Some nights, I'd wake, up from nightmares choking on tears. I'd see flashes. His shadow in the doorway, the click of the hallway light, the sound of the floor creaking under his weight. I'd sit in the dark with my hands over my ears, whispering, "It's over. It's over. It's over," like a broken record, but it wasn't over. He still walked around the house like nothing happened, smiling, charming. He helped Dad fix the car. He led prayer at the dinner table. He patted my shoulder in front of guests like a proud brother. Once, during a family dinner, I was reaching for the bread when he touched my arm. Just a touch. Light. Almost nothing. But I flinched so hard my glass tipped over and spilled water all over the table. My father's eyes snapped to mine. "What's wrong with you?" he barked. "Don't be dramatic. He's your brother. Show some respect." I nodded, biting the inside of my cheek. The water soaked into my lap. I didn't even feel it. Later that night, I curled up on my mattress and wrote. That's how I survived, by writing. I couldn't tell anyone, so I told the page. I started writing letters to the baby growing inside me. I didn't call it baby, yet. Just little one. That felt safer, less real. "Dear little one," I wrote, "I don't know who I am anymore, but I know I want you to be safe. I want you to grow up in a world where no one ever makes you feel afraid of your own home." I folded the letter and slid it under my mattress, next to the others. My small, secret world. One night, I did something bold, something dangerous. I locked my bedroom door. The sound of the bolt sliding into place sent shivers down my back. It was the first time I had locked it since I was a child. I stared at the doorknob for a long time, heart pounding. That night, I slept a little deeper. But in the morning, the door was cracked open. The lock was broken. I stood there, staring at the splintered wood, and something inside me died. He didn't have to say anything. That was his message. You don't get to have privacy. You don't get to feel safe. After that, I started keeping money. Just coins and small bills from grocery errands. I'd slip them into my sock or inside a tampon box in the back of my closet. It wasn't much, a few hundred rupees here and there, but it felt like hope. My body was changing fast. I couldn't hide it much longer. My belly curved gently, and my pants grew tight. My back ached. I moved slower. I spoke less. Even my reflection looked like a stranger. Tired eyes, dull hair, hollow cheeks. One morning, I threw up so hard I collapsed to my knees beside the toilet. My fingers gripped the edge of the sink. My stomach was empty, but I kept retching. Afterward, I sat on the cold floor, shaking. The sun filtered in through the bathroom window. Dust floated in the light like snow. I reached under the sink and pulled out the test I had hidden behind a box of bandages. The same kind of test I'd used before. But this time, I didn't need proof. I just needed confirmation. I took the test. 2 pink lines again. Clear as day. I stared at it, my hand trembling. This time, something shifted in me. I whispered, "I deserve better than this." It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just a whisper. But it was the first time I believed it. I sat there for a long time. My knees hurt. My skin felt cold. But I didn't move. Because that whisper, that tiny sentence, it was the first drop of strength I had felt in years. It didn't change. Everything overnight, Michael still existed. So did my father. So did the house full of secrets. But now I had a flicker of light inside me, and no one could take that from me. I don't know why I thought he might listen. Maybe because he was my father. Maybe because deep down, I still hoped for a shred of love. Or maybe because the weight of the secret was crushing my chest, and I couldn't carry it anymore. That morning, I stood in the kitchen, my hands cold, even though the sun was pouring through the windows. My father was eating toast at the table, the newspaper open in front of him. Michael had already left. I waited for that. I couldn't do it with him in the room. I cleared my throat. "Dad, I need to talk to you." He didn't look up. "Talk." Then, my fingers trembled as I twisted them together. My voice came out like a whisper. "I'm pregnant." He looked up, slowly. His eyes narrowed. What did you say? I swallowed hard. I'm pregnant. For a second, he just stared at me, like the words didn't make sense in his head. Then he stood. His chair scraped the floor. Who? He asked, his voice sharp. Who is the father? I hesitated. Some boy from school? He demanded. I shook my head. Then who? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. My lips were dry. My knees felt weak. Speak, girl, he roared. I closed my eyes. Michael. The room went dead silent. I opened my eyes just in time to see the back of his hand flying toward my face. The slap knocked me sideways. I hit the wall, the sting blooming hot across my cheek. My ears rang. You filthy liar, he shouted. Don't you ever say that again. Tears rushed to my eyes. It's the truth. You think I'm stupid? He yelled. You want to destroy your brother's life? You probably snuck around behind my back with some boy from that dirty school, and now you're trying to cover it up. Shame on you. I'm not lying, I whispered, my voice shaking. He grabbed the edge of the table so hard the salt shaker tipped over. You disgust me. I ran upstairs. I didn't wait for more. I locked the door, heart slamming against my ribs like a trapped bird. I pressed a towel against my cheek to stop the burning. That night, I heard Michael come home. I heard their voices downstairs, laughing, like nothing happened. Later, as I tiptoed down the hall toward the bathroom, Michael stepped out of the shadows near his room. He leaned close, his voice like acid. Told you they'd never believe you. I stared at him, frozen. He smirked. You're nothing. No one. And now you're just a stupid girl with a bastard baby. Good luck. That was it. The last thread inside me snapped. I packed in silence. A small backpack, just a shirt, a scarf, the hidden cash, and my notebook full of letters. No phone, no charger. I didn't care. The house creaked as I crept down the stairs. I kept my breath shallow, my footsteps light. At the door, I turned once. I looked at the living room, the brown couch, the silent TV, the picture of Mom on the wall, her smiling face frozen in time. I'm sorry, I whispered. Then I stepped out into the night. The air hit my face, cool and sharp. I pulled my hoodie tighter and walked fast. My feet hurt. My eyes stung. But I didn't stop. I didn't even know where I was going. Just away. The city looked different at night. Angry. Flickering lights. Trash blowing in the streets. Strangers with hard eyes. I kept walking until my legs gave out. I ended up at a bus station downtown. It smelled like cigarettes and old coffee. I curled up on a bench in the corner, holding my backpack to my chest. I pressed my face into my sleeve and tried not to sob too loudly. I was shaking, not just from the cold, but from everything. The bench was metal and hard. I stayed awake most of the night, flinching every time someone walked past. A man muttered to himself. A couple yelled at each other in the distance. Somewhere a siren screamed. I don't know when I dozed off. Maybe for an hour. Maybe less. The janitor woke me. He was older, with kind eyes and a mop in one hand. He crouched beside me and said gently, "Sweetheart, are you okay?" I shook my head. He didn't ask too many questions, just said, "You don't belong out here." Then he handed me a warm cup of tea from the vending machine. "Wait here," he said. I did. An hour later, a woman with a soft sweater and gentle voice arrived. She introduced herself as Maria from a women's shelter nearby. She spoke slowly, like she didn't want to scare me. "Would you like to come with me?" she asked. "We have food, a bed, people who can help." I nodded. I don't remember the drive much. Just the hum of the car, the streetlights blurring past. The shelter was quiet, warm, safe. They gave me clean clothes, let me shower, fed me oatmeal with raisins. But it wasn't until I sat down with the counselor that the dam inside me broke. Her name was Denise. She had gentle eyes and hands that didn't rush. I opened my mouth to speak and sobbed instead. I cried so hard. My chest ached. My shoulders shook. I couldn't even say words for a while, but Denise didn't interrupt. She handed me tissues and waited. When I finally spoke, I told her everything. About Michael. About my father. About the silence and the door and the fear. About the test. About the letters. She didn't doubt me. Not once. She just listened. And when I was done, she said, "You're brave, Sarah. You're not alone anymore." A nurse confirmed the pregnancy. They helped me file a police report. It was terrifying. My voice shook. My stomach turned. I kept thinking, what if he finds me? But I did it. I told the truth. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was moving. Still afraid, yes. Still broken in places, but no longer frozen. I sat in the small hearing room, hands trembling in my lap. It was quiet. Too quiet. Just the hum of the air conditioner and the soft clicks of the clerk's keyboard. My counselor sat beside me. She squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back, afraid my voice would crack when they called my name. They didn't make me face Michael directly. This wasn't a full trial, just a hearing for the protective order. A small, private room. No jury. Just a judge, my advocate, and a detective asking me questions with careful, quiet words. Still, I felt naked. My heart thudded so loud I thought they could hear it through my blouse. I looked at the floor as I spoke. My brother. He hurt me. He made me afraid. I didn't think anyone would believe me. That was the truth. When it was over, I stepped outside and breathed like I hadn't in months. The sky looked more blue than I remembered. Michael was questioned by police soon after, but there wasn't enough for charges. Not then. Still, he looked rattled. I heard through someone at church that he'd left school for a while. I didn't care. For once, I didn't care what they were whispering about me back home. I had bigger things to do now. I was trying to live. About 2 weeks later, he came. My father. He showed up at the shelter. I was in the kitchen, helping fold laundry with another girl when one of the staff came to get me. "There's a man outside, asking for you. Says he's your father." I felt like my lungs locked. I froze mid-fold, the soft blue baby onesie trembling in my hands. I followed her down the hallway to the door. He was standing there, tall, red-faced, arms crossed like he was trying to hold the whole world back with his elbows. "Sarah!" he barked the moment he saw me. "Enough of this. Come home. This has gone too far." I didn't walk outside. I stood right there in the doorway. A line between us. "I'm not coming home," I said, my voice shaking. "You've lied long enough. You've made a mess of everything. You're tearing this family apart." His voice grew louder, but I didn't flinch this time. "You're the reason I left," I said quietly. His mouth opened, then shut. His eyes flashed, like he couldn't believe I said it. A staff member stepped forward, placing herself between us. "Sir, you need to leave," she said, calm but firm. "You're not welcome here." My father stared at me a few more seconds, then turned, angry and confused, and walked back to his car. As the door shut behind him, I felt something strange. Not fear, freedom. I went back to the laundry room and folded the rest of the clothes with tears on my face. Not from sadness, but from something new. Power. Therapy wasn't easy. Talking about the past felt like scraping out old wounds that had never healed right. But every time I sat in that chair and spoke, even just a little, it helped. My therapist gave me a blank notebook and said, "Start writing. Anything. Just for yourself." So I did. I wrote at night when the shelter got quiet. I'd sit by the small window in my room, moonlight spilling across the floor, and scribble down memories, questions, pain, and sometimes hope. Eventually, it turned into chapters. I gave it a title, "The House Where No One Listened." Writing made me feel less alone, like I was reaching back to hold the hand of the girl I used to be, and letting her know, "I hear you now." One of the staff helped me apply for a scholarship for teen mothers. I didn't think I'd get it, but I wrote an essay straight, from the heart. I didn't hide the truth. I told them I had no degree, no home, and no family behind me. But I had a story. I got the scholarship. They offered me a spot in an online writing program. Flexible, slow-paced, designed for young moms like me. I cried when I got the email. The shelter helped me find a small shared apartment with 2 other girls. It was nothing fancy. Just 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and chipped tiles in the bathroom. But it was ours. I decorated my little corner with donated artwork and used baby books. One of the volunteers gave me a string of fairy lights. I hung them above my bed. At night, they glowed like stars in the dark. Months passed. My belly grew. So did I. I learned how to budget, how to stretch $20 to feed myself for a week. I learned how to cook rice that didn't stick and eggs that didn't burn. I even learned how to hug myself when the nights got hard. And then she came. Lily, my daughter. The first time I held her in my arms, everything inside me softened and broke open at the same time. She was so small, warm, squirming, eyes blinking in the hospital light like she couldn't believe the world was real. I looked at her and whispered, "You'll never know silence like I did." I made that promise with every piece of my heart. Late, one night, I uploaded a few chapters of my story to Wattpad, just for me, just to see it out there. I didn't expect anything. But within weeks, the comments started coming. One girl wrote, "This is my story too. I thought I was the only one." Another said, "You helped me speak to my therapist for the first time." Then a woman in her 60s messaged me privately. She wrote, "I never told anyone about what happened to me as a girl. Your words gave me courage. It wasn't a bestseller. It didn't make me rich, but it reached people. Real people." My inbox, filled with stories, survivors, mothers, sisters, grandmothers, all whispering the same thing. Me too. Sometimes, I still wake up in the middle of the night, breath tight, heart racing, echoes from the past clinging to my ribs. But I look at Lily, sleeping soundly beside me, and I remember, I am not that girl anymore. I'm building a life where truth has a place to live, where silence doesn't win. I may have walked away from my family, but I walked into something far more precious. Myself. The first time I stood in front of a group of teenage girls at the youth center, my hands were shaking. I held the microphone like it might fall apart in my grip. I looked at their faces, some bored, some guarded, some quietly curious. I remembered being that age, wanting to disappear, hoping no one could see the pain behind my eyes. "My name is Sarah," I began, my voice cracking. And I used to believe that silence kept me safe. There was a stillness in the room, and it gave me courage. I told them about the walls in my childhood home, how they soaked up screams and turned them into whispers. I told them how I learned to make myself small. I told them about Michael, not in detail, just enough to let them know that monsters sometimes wear smiles. When I finished, a girl in the back raised her hand. She didn't ask a question. She just said, "Me too." I nodded. We didn't need more words. That was the first time I shared my story out loud. But it wouldn't be the last. A few weeks later, a woman from a small publishing press reached out. She'd read my story online, the one I'd posted late one night on Wattpad when Lily was still newborn, asleep against my chest. The house, where no one listened, had been my therapy. My truth spilled out in soft paragraphs and raw memories. I never expected anyone to read it, but they did. And suddenly, my inbox filled with messages from strangers. Women, girls, even a few men, all saying the same thing. "Thank you. I thought I was the only one." The publisher offered to help turn the story into a printed book. I cried when the first copy arrived, the cover soft matte, the title in my handwriting. I held it in trembling hands while Lily babbled beside me, slapping the floor with her tiny palms. Later that month, I was invited to speak on a panel. Survivors, advocates, therapists. I sat at a long table, a glass of water in front of me, my heart thudding against my ribs. They introduced me as Sarah Ellis, author and youth speaker. I almost laughed. Just a year ago, I was hiding in a shelter, wondering how I would survive the next day. Now people were asking me how I healed. I didn't lie. I told them I was still healing. That some days the past pressed down on my chest like a stone. But most days now, I could breathe. And that was enough. When Lily turned 2, we moved again, this time into our very own one-bedroom apartment. No roommates, no caseworker down the hall, just us. It had a small kitchen with chipped counters and a window that let in golden morning light. I bought string lights and a soft rug. I painted tiny birds on Lily's wall and stacked baby books beside her bed. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe. Ours. One afternoon, while walking Lily to the park, I passed by my old middle school. The building hadn't changed. The paint still flaked off the bricks. A group of kids spilled out the front doors, laughing, backpacks bouncing. A man stood by the gate, waiting. Tall, graying, familiar. "Mr. Reynolds?" I asked, blinking. He turned, eyes widening. "Sarah?" We stared at each other for a second. Then he smiled, soft, sad. "You look like yourself now." I swallowed hard. "You tried to help me once. You called home after I missed a week of school." "I remember," he said. "Your father said everything was fine, but I knew something wasn't right." Tears stung my eyes. "Thank you for seeing me, even if I couldn't say anything back then." He nodded. "I'm proud of you." That evening, after Lily fell asleep, I pulled out my notebook and wrote those words down. Over and over. "I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you." I began journaling again. But now, not just for me. I wanted to hold space for others too. That's how Louder Than Silence was born. A podcast where survivors could speak their truth. Some told their stories with tears, some with calm, steady voices. All of them were brave. One episode was just me. I called it the F word. Forgiveness. I spoke into the mic with my eyes closed. "I don't forgive them yet," I said softly. "Not my father, not Michael. Maybe someday, maybe never. But I'm learning to forgive myself for staying too long, for not knowing, for being afraid. That's where I'm starting." People wrote in after that episode. One woman said she'd never heard someone admit that out loud. That forgiveness wasn't a switch you flipped. That sometimes just surviving was the most powerful thing you could do. I still have nightmares. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, hands clammy. But now I know what to do. I breathe. I touch Lily's tiny foot beside me. I remind myself, we are safe. One morning I was pouring cereal when Lily tugged on my leg. "Mama?" she said. I looked down. "I love you, Mama." The spoon clattered in the bowl. Tears welled in my eyes as I knelt to hold her. Her voice, sweet and sure, wrapped around my heart like a blanket. That moment felt like everything I never had, and everything I was building now. A life where love was loud, where silence didn't win. And every day, I was growing into the kind of mother I once wished for. Not perfect, but whole. And finally free. Michael was never arrested. I used to stay up at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how someone could do what he did and just walk away. But he didn't really walk away. Not clean, not free. The protective order stayed in place. He couldn't come near me or Lily, couldn't call, couldn't write. I remember holding that paper in my hand the day it came. Thick, official, like a small shield. It didn't erase the fear, but it gave me a line to draw between us. I heard, through someone, that Michael lost his job. The investigation at his office made people uncomfortable. Even though there was no trial, the whisper of it followed him. He was asked to leave quietly. He moved to another state after that, somewhere far, cold. Someone told me he lives alone now. No wife, no children, no photos on his wall. At first, I wanted more. I wanted him to hurt like I had. I wanted him to wake up sweating, feeling hands he couldn't explain. But that kind of anger, it burns through everything, even the parts of you that are still alive. Now, I just feel sorry for him, not because he's alone, but because he made himself that way. He threw away love. He crushed trust. He chose to be cruel. And that emptiness, that's his to carry now, not mine. My father died 3 years ago. A stroke, they said. Quick. Quiet. I didn't go to the funeral. I thought about it. I sat on my couch with the old black dress folded in my lap. I imagined standing at the back of the church, silent, unseen. But then I looked at Lily, playing with her blocks, giggling at her own little world. And I knew he didn't deserve a piece of my peace, not even for an hour. Some distant relatives reached out afterward, cousins I barely remembered. One wrote me a letter. It said, "We didn't know. We're sorry. Truly." I read it twice. Then I replied with just one sentence, "Thank you." But I've moved on, and I meant it. There's no more room in my life for ghosts. No more space in my chest for what-ifs and why-me's. Instead, I fill my days with voices. Real ones. Women who read my book. Teen girls who send me voice notes after my podcast episodes. One woman, Angela, messaged me last winter. She said, "I finally told someone. Because of you. Because your voice made me feel safe." I sat on my kitchen floor and cried after I read that. Because that's justice. Not courtrooms. Not headlines. Not revenge. But this. Helping another woman say me too without shame. Giving someone a light when they've only ever known dark. Every time I get a message like that, I feel something shift. Like I've stitched one more thread into the life I'm trying to build. Not from what was done to me, but from what I've chosen to do with it. That's how healing works. quiet, steady, powerful. And sometimes it sounds like the soft ping of a message from a stranger who just needed to know they weren't alone. That's when I whisper to myself, he didn't win. I did. We all did. The garden was quiet this afternoon. The sun was warm but gentle, filtered through the leaves of an old maple tree. I sat on a worn wooden bench, my hands resting lightly on the cover of the journal that had started it all. Lily's laughter floated nearby. She was playing in the grass, chasing tiny butterflies with her little hands. Her curls caught the sunlight, shining like gold threads. I opened the journal, its pages soft from years of turning. Each word was a step, a breath, a fight for life. That girl who once hid in the bathroom, trembling with fear, the one who scribbled words just to survive, I love her. I whispered it softly, like a prayer, as if she could hear me now. I don't hate my past anymore. I don't live there. I carry it, yes, but not like a weight to crush me. Instead, it's a part of me. Like a scar that reminds me I'm still here, I looked up, as if speaking to someone who might be listening through the leaves and the quiet air. If you've ever been silenced, if you've ever been hurt, I need you to hear me. It is not your fault. The words felt heavy, but free. I closed the journal carefully, like closing a door that had been open for too long. I reached for Lily, holding her close. Her small arms wrapped around my neck, and I felt her heartbeat steady against mine. We don't break the cycle by screaming, I said softly. We break it by surviving, and then speaking. The garden held us gently, and for the first time in a long time, I believed that was enough.